Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to the Board of Court Reporting. Today is Friday, December the 9th. This is the meeting that has been scheduled for a while and noticed to the public. My name's Roxanne.
This meeting is being transcribed.
Sorry. I am the
This meeting is being recorded.
I'm the executive director with this program. The first thing that I'd like to do is go ahead and do a quick roll call vote to make sure that we have quorum in order to proceed. When I read your names, if you can just let me know that you are here. Our chair, Ms. Stephanie Branham. Thank you. And if you could bring your mics close to you just to make sure that we've got anybody that's participating through Teams can hear us, and then for the recording. Brandon Pettis. Thank you. Marilyn Morgan. Ms. Morgan is planning on joining us virtually, but we've had to switch our Teams meeting, so we will hopefully have her here in just a few minutes. Britton Collins.
Present.
Thank you. Ken Mansfield.
Present.
Thank you. Chancellor John Rambo. And he unfortunately had a last-minute conflict with this change of date. And Korea Neal. The same, she was not able to join us. However, we have 4 members in person, which constitute quorum, so we will go ahead and get started. Notice of this meeting was originally for an October date that had to be canceled, moved to November 18th due to lack of quorum. That meeting then was rescheduled to today, December 9th, and it's been posted on the website as such for the public to be able to see, come in person, or join us, which also streams live. This agenda was posted to the board's website on November the 17th. The first item on our agenda that I would like is for the members to look at the agenda that was posted, and I would need a motion to accept it and proceed as it's noted, or if you need to make any changes to the agenda.
I move that we accept the agenda as posted.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Britton Collins and a second by Mr. Ken Mansfield to go ahead and proceed with the agenda as posted. The next item is our March meeting minutes. March was a long time away, but I emailed those minutes to everyone. They're also on your iPads. If you have any changes that you see needed from those minutes, please let me know. Otherwise, we would need a motion to accept them as they're presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Brandon Pettis and a second by Ms. Stephanie Branham to accept as presented. And so moving on, accepting the minutes.
We need a vote on them.
I apologize. You're right.
I think we might have skipped the
we
vote
did
on
the agenda.
as well.
I will come back. Regarding the agenda, we had a motion as well as a second. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Now on the March minutes, we had a motion as well as a second to accept the March minutes as they were presented with no changes. All those in favor of accepting them, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. And thank you for slowing me down and pointing that. I truly appreciate that. On your presentation, the director's report is starts on page 5 of the 13 pages. This is general information. Happy to discuss further if we've got any questions. Fiscal year 2021-2022 is officially closed. You can see our numbers. We added a total of, we're at a total reserve of $191,705, and of course, this fiscal year that just ended brought in all of our renewal funds. Our renewal numbers are pretty consistent. We're down a little bit, still at about 480 active court reporters, still seeing some come in throughout the year, which is a great thing. Again, I don't see any need in any type of changes at this time. It's something we always keep an eye on. I'm always leery of the thought of reducing fees because this program only has fees coming in every other year. We are now allocating the proper payroll expense, which again for a year, $11,500 is very, very small, which is one of the advantages of having a combined team. We can distribute our workload better. Any questions regarding the numbers? The following page to that does give us some information for July, August, and September. Obviously, we are already then in a negative of 9,799, and that'll happen through the year. But with our reserves and with the last renewal cycle, I don't think we'll have an issue with this 2-year cycle being in the red. But it's something we definitely keep an eye out. There's no need to motion that. This is general information. What I will do for our next meeting is get an update of numbers, just so everyone can also kind of see some trend of where numbers are, just to keep an eye on that as well. The next item that we do need to vote on the record would be the 2023 meeting dates. We have tentatively scheduled these for March 24th and October 27th. That would be in line with what the board did for this year, and if it's okay with everyone, we can motion them as is. If anyone would like to see the October move back to September, I can look at those dates and then simply email everyone. I welcome those conversations. I know hitting that October meeting was difficult this time.
I think looking at the end of September would be a good idea. In case anything comes up, then you have adequate time before we get into the December period, which is problematic.
Ms. Stephanie, is there any conference or anything for the profession that you can think of that would keep September? For years, that's what we did, is we had March and September as the 2 meeting dates.
Not that I can think.
Okay.
I think National in August.
Yeah.
Dates in the
1st of August.
Okay, so if it's okay with the board, I would like a motion to accept, obviously, the March date and allow me to look at that last date in. We meet on Friday, so it would be at the same time, 9 a.m. that last Friday, tentatively, and we can go ahead and set that date. I just need to make sure that we will have a room available, and we should. Friday is not a date that everybody is desperate to meet, so it would be September the 29th. And so unless there's a change with not having a room available, we will change the October 27th to Friday, September the 29th, same time, and then I will email everybody the 2 dates so you can update your calendars. Does that sound okay? Wonderful. So with that change, I would need a motion to accept those dates, please.
I make a motion we accept those dates.
second.
We have a motion by Ken Mansfield, a second by Stephanie Branham. All those in favor of changing, having the dates for March 24th and September 29th, please say yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you very much. The last item that I have that is on your iPads is a new business item we can discuss toward the end after the legal report's been read. And so what I did want to talk about before we turn it over to Mr. Hugh is kind of an update on the IDs for our court reporters. I know you talked to Glenn Kopchak about it, and I'm thrilled for Glenn. He now has 6 programs he's the executive director over, so we've worked for years together and just so happy that he's doing an amazing job with that. And so now you've got me back on the program, but I've been keeping up with the IDs. We work together on doing those. And here's one of the delays we had is we've been moved to a different floor. So with printer moves and all of us, that had to be delayed slightly. The printers that will print those photos are not ours. They're shared. They're used all the time for security, armed guards, unarmed. You can imagine the volume that creates. So we're welcome to use those, but as they've had issues with the printers, we went ahead and made sure we didn't want to inconvenience them. The thought I believe that everyone had agreed with was to offer to our licensed court reporters the option they would select, and we will send out proper information for all of them to know that this is a free thing that we're able to give them, that we would need their photograph. It would be the same size as what prints for the security guards, that they can send that PDF to us. It would be at no cost, and we would be able to get those and send them out. We call that a transaction. It will be a one-time thing that court reporters do. And as we were starting to test it and we've got it all developed, we didn't launch it with the actual renewal. 1, because of the volume. 2, we were moving, and it just didn't feel like it would be a smooth thing. We might end up with all of them asking for it when they don't in fact need it, right? So that's something to think about. We will not have the option to redo those IDs, so it's something to discuss maybe now. What happens if they have a name change, right? or if they lose it, because it's being done for free and it's really not something statutorily required. I don't know that the board can consistently reprint those, right? I have several programs where if they lose the ID, it's a big deal. They have to pay for a duplicate because it has to be posted. This wouldn't be the case. So that's one thought, that the office, once they print it and mail it, is really limited to it being available all the time. And then the other piece, that from a programming side, I wanted to discuss with you and think about how these IDs will be used when going into a courtroom, when walking into a building where they don't want to stand in line. That was one of the reasons we wanted to do them, is they may not have an expiration date. Is that okay? Because if we set the expiration date, then that really becomes a question when 2 years from now that ID expires. So are we okay leaving off the expiration date, because we can't redo them every 2 years? That then, with the notion that we're going to be running into financial issues, would be difficult for the program to be redoing 200 to 300 IDs every 2 years. Thoughts? I've said a lot.
Is this a one-time thing in that only court reporters who are licensed right now are going to be able to take advantage of this? Or if somebody comes in 5 years from now and registers, they would be able to do it?
Yes. Our thought is to do a one-time offer for everybody that is licensed, right? So that they can use this and take advantage if they need it. There may be court reporters that don't need it, that do most things virtually, etc. But as a new reporter comes on, a court reporter, they would immediately get it. So by immediately, maybe within a week after the license, it would print and go out, and they'd have the option, do you need it or not? It's a courtesy ID. So that's the plan. They'd still get it. But the issue is the expiration. If we put the expiration, then it becomes null and void in 2 years, because they're going to be questioned more than anything else. If we don't put it and then they're questioned because there's no expiration, then is it worth doing? And as we were starting to print and do the samples is when that kicked into, we need to think about this. Very few professions now have IDs for that reason, maybe, that it's an ongoing issue, getting them out in the mail. When people move and they forget, they come back, name changes, all those things, unless the statute requires. Again, so I'm picking on armed guards, security guards, the Dallas law that just went, there's a reason why they have to have it statutorily. It's required. They update their photo every 2 years. And it's a huge process and an expense. So thoughts about that expiration date?
Problematic to not have an expiration date on it. The original license we had with a photo on it had the expiration date on it. I still have kept mine just to have a photo ID for that purpose, but it's expired, so I still have the license that shows the expiration date on it to go with that. But I think just to issue a license with no expiration, I think is problematic for any profession or for any licensure of any kind.
Now this is not going to be the license, right? This is
Okay.
simply a photo ID.
All right.
Your
I got you.
license will forever, hopefully, print,
Right.
and it has an expiration date. If you change your name, the new name, all of that.
All right, so
This is
not
a
to take the
courtesy
place.
ID is
Oh, I
what in my mind I refer to, that you all discussed. And we can pull in whatever fields we decide. So logically, your full name would be pulled in. I believe we can pull in your initial date if that's significant, but if it isn't, we can leave it out. But it is a way to say you are a licensed court reporter, and then your photo. None of our licenses themselves do, probably for that programming situation. We need the photo. It has to meet standards. It has to print. Even as I pick on security guards, they get a license, which is that big piece and the pocket card maybe, but statutorily they get this ID that mimics the license, but it's printed separately, and it does have to be updated every 2 years.
So you're saying essentially the ID is strictly really just for getting through security at a courthouse?
If that is, again, what, as board members, you still see a need and want, that would be the purpose. It would be to expedite your security. It is not replacing the license, because by statute, you need that to prove you're active. But if it serves no purpose without the expiration, then is it even worth doing? Just if we're ready to make the decisions, great. If we want to do, obviously, court reporters isn't licensed in half of the state, so this isn't an issue we really can ask around to see what they're doing. It's more, are we still seeing the need for the court reporters that are going in the buildings and asked and delayed? and maybe only those ask for it. I think when it becomes available, all the court reporters will probably ask for it because there would be no major reason why not to.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, of course, the security at each courthouse is up to the local judges
Right.
in that district, and so we can issue the ID card, but whether they're going to accept it is to the discretion of each court. So I think that cuts against the value some, and then I mean, on the other hand, there are going to be some courthouses that will accept it, and if we're issuing an ID without an expiration date, we're essentially giving somebody a free pass potentially into these courthouses forever, notwithstanding what they may have done. We've had people who we've had to censure, suspend, and so forth. We've not had truly egregious situations yet, but you could.
You could.
So it's compromising the security integrity of the courthouses at the same time in those extreme circumstances. On the third hand, in Knox County, we have the Public Building Authority issues similar IDs, and it just has your face on it. And for lawyers, it says attorneys, and for attorney staffs, it says attorney staff, and it's a get past. It doesn't have an expiration date, and they don't look at it that closely. You
Okay.
just flash the thing as you're going through, and
ours are the
they
same
wave
way,
you on.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and they don't expire. And I've had the same one for over a decade, and nobody seems to care. So, having talked through that, I need to verbally process this, I guess. But it seems like issuing the ID is a fine move. I think if the courts want to accept it, then that's their prerogative. If they don't, then they don't have to. And if the security at a particular courthouse is bothered by the fact that there's no expiration date on it, then they can just say, we're not going to accept this, and you need to get through the line and go through security. I don't know that it's our responsibility to protect the courthouses. They've got trained staff who can do that themselves and determine their own entry credentials.
I think you made a great comparison to your situation because I know that I worked at the BPR. The pictures aren't associated with the license. Same here. We get into federal buildings with this, and it has no expiration, so it wouldn't be unique. I hadn't thought through the other areas. So we can definitely proceed with that logic that once they get it and want to keep using it, that's that one-time courtesy. All our new court reporters get it, left up to the jurisdiction of the court. The courts can always, of course, then also photograph their driver's license, right, to make sure.
Yeah, I wonder if is there any sort of procedure that the department has in place for if a license is revoked or suspended, that we request that the licensee send their physical license back to us? And I'm wondering if we could append on to that a request that if they have the photo ID that also be returned, or if they voluntarily give up their license or something. But just to add that, and if they send it, great, we've taken one off the street. If they don't, I mean, there's not much we can do, but we can at least make the ask.
I think that's a great thing because our technology would know one was issued, right? So we could ask for it back, and at least that way we've done our due diligence in it. Statutorily, there's nothing that says that they'd have to, because oftentimes we get we lost it. I don't know what you're talking about. But it's worth asking and proceeding. If the board's comfortable, I will proceed knowing we don't worry about the expiration date, and we try. There will be that exception of someone that says, I lost it. It didn't get in the mail. We'll ask for something in writing, and we will, make every effort to print it as soon as we can and take all that into account. But if it helps the profession and the court some, we're definitely open to that. In 2016, or maybe even 2015, I had the first meeting with the court reporters that were on that board, and it was asked of then, but the answer was no, simply because almost every program had moved away from needing to print and add photos. It's just very time-consuming, costly, et cetera. Now that we've been approved, I want to take advantage of it if it's going to help the industry and the courts some. So if the board's okay with it, then I will proceed, and hopefully by September, those of you that have a court reporter license, you'll already have gotten the letter and email from me saying this is, you know, we're happy to be able to offer this to you and walk them through the steps, and we'll give you an update at that point.
Yeah, I think we need to be, the messaging though needs to probably be clear that, you know, the courthouses don't have to accept this, you know, and so it is just a courtesy. Hopefully it's helpful to them, but, you know, they're not required to accept it. And so don't be surprised if they don't.
Add that to it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then that this is a one-time thing. I think it probably needs to be clear
Yes.
that if, you know, if they want this, they need to be careful with it, kind of thing, so that we don't have to address this
Post-discussion,
every meeting. You know, we're going to have somebody emailing in upset that we're going to have to deal with.
Absolutely.
Post-discussion, I'm totally comfortable with proceeding.
Yeah, I think I do like the idea that if for whatever reason their license is revoked, that we ask for it back. I think, you know, because to me that is a little concerning, not having an expiration date, and the fact that people do stupid things, and you know, somebody could do something very unethical or criminal, their license is revoked, and then they still have this access. And at least that way, I feel like there's some protection sort of in place.
I think getting the education too, that it is not the license would
Oh,
be
yes.
good.
Yes, and that will be communicated, but also at the continuing education sessions, at least the big events, we want to make sure that they understand Tennessee's doing this as a courtesy to expedite the process through the courts if needed, or certain offices. But yeah, it's not the license. The license will still have everything it needs. That sounds wonderful. Yes, sir. I think that's a great idea, because when the program was licensed or regulated, or at least tracked through the Supreme Court, that's why it existed, right? They were able to do that. So I think I will definitely work with Hugh to make sure that our communication reaches maybe the Supreme Court, so they can decide how to distribute it, and let them know we've gone back to something you all were able to do, and it's taken us a minute to get there, inform them, and launch that, so at least other courts know this is coming, and hopefully it is helpful. I love that idea. I think that's brilliant and wonderful. Hugh, I think I'll turn, if it's okay, then this has really helped me immensely. I wanted to make sure we all thought it through before we launched 400 items out there and IDs, and then didn't have a major use for it. So let me turn it over on your iPads, the legal report, which is just 2 cases, I believe. It starts on page 12, and then we will come back to our conversation just about a request we've got, and see if Ms. Morgan was able to join us. It's all yours, Hugh. I will mute my...
All right, thank you. Everybody can hear me. So we have the legal report here, but just before we get into that, I wanted to give you an update on the rules. We've had these rules in the pipeline for a good while now, but these are the continuing education requirements based on Public Chapter 535. Those are almost done. The effective date is set as February 21st, 2023. So sometime between now and then, there's going to be a GovOps meeting to attend. It's something that attorneys and the legislative department do, but that's it. They're pretty much done. They've been filed with Secretary of State and all of that. So I just want to give you an update on those. As for the legal report, there are 2 cases. There's one recommended for closure. There was a civil suit involved with that complaint that this board is going to have jurisdiction over, but it's since been thrown out of court, so there's no issue there. The second one is requesting a consent order on this one. That the court reporter she had an expired license and was at least holding themselves out to be a court reporter seeking work. So per the statutory schedule that this board agreed to 2 years ago, the penalty there would be a civil penalty for $250. And if it's not paid, then we proceed to a formal hearing. And if you have any questions, then.
So this reporter first licensed in 2010, and their license expired in 2018, and yet they were unaware of having to renew their license.
That's the same thing. They had 4 renewals, right?
That's the
Or at
argument.
least 3. Or sorry, yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really get into the merits of the response. We got statutory schedules. That's what it says to do. I mean, we can adjust that potentially, but that's the argument, that they were unaware that they were supposed to do that.
I've got a question about what will they do going forward? Their license is expired. Are they going to apply for a traditional license now? Or are they abandoning the practice of court reporting forevermore? Their license is expired 4 years ago.
Yeah, that I don't know, and I'm not sure how often this person is seeking work or any of that. But it could be a situation where sort of just kind of hoping that they're not caught. But indeed, we're caught. But this board does audits, but it's randomized audits, so it could be something like that. I can't really speak to all that. It's something the program side does. I just look at the plan as it comes in, and that's if it's expired 2018. I'm not looking back at 2010. I'm looking at 2018. So that's where we are now.
I think there's a provision that it can be up to $250 per occurrence. And this person is continuing to do it. It sounds like.
Well, there is a
Admitted to
provision in
working.
there. Yep.
So I don't know that we can close it out under a situation like this. without a
Say
formal
close it out.
hearing.
I'm not sure what you mean.
I wish we could, but I don't know that we can if this person is continuing to hold themselves out as a reporter without a license.
Well, like I said, I don't know if if this is an everyday thing or if it's just every 4 years thing or every 10 years thing. I can't speak to that. The requirement is, you have the 2-year renewals. So in theory, you could do the renewal period, each one that was missed. But it's been expired since 2018. The complaint came in last month, so we've really been put on notice. For me, when the complaint comes in, based on where I am, I'm looking forward. I'm not looking back as much. I think that's the audit process, that we have an audit process for that, purpose. And if it was missed, it was missed. But it's up to the board's authority. I mean, if you'd like to modify the recommendation, we can do that. But I'd like to get it based on the statutory citation schedule.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, Ken, go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to make a statement that it seems to me that it's going to be less money to pay $250 every time you're caught and continue to do it than it would be to comply with the law.
No, it's not. It's not $250 every time. Next time it's going to be $500. Third time it's a revocation. So it's not going to be $250 every time.
Well, I think the thing is, you don't know they're doing it unless they're reported. So,
Right.
I mean, they could pay the fine and not practice anymore, or they could pay the fine and continue doing it. So unless they're reported, there's no way to really police it anyway.
Yeah, they have to have a license from this point forward. I mean, we'll be checking on that. Right. But they can't move forward without if this is a recommendation for $250 civil penalty. If they don't agree with the civil penalty, move forward, make the payment and move forward, then they don't get it. I mean, they can't practice. I mean, it's not going to work that way. But based on the right, I mean that's how it is with anything. I mean,
Yeah, I mean the alternative. I guess I was about to make a statement. What's the alternative? Yeah. So I
Now,
mean,
if the civil penalty, pardon me, is increased to deter, I mean, and I'm not suggesting $10,000. Some programs cite very heavy for that unlicensed activity, because at this point he is very expired. And so it could be more, as Hugh says, than the 250 if we think that the civil penalty will be the deterrent to understanding that this isn't acceptable, but it does have to have a rationale.
But we're limited to $500, right?
Well, the citation schedule's first time is $250. We can adjust that if we need to. It just needs to be on record that, this is why you're going off the citation schedule. And I personally, I wouldn't recommend it just because of the facts involved. I mean, I think if you have a citation schedule, my thought is to stick to the citation schedule unless something's extreme. And I mean, it's very unfortunate, but it's also, we have this randomized audit process and we have the citation schedule. If you think that you'd like to move forward and revise the citation schedule to a higher penalty, we could do that. Or we could focus on this one complaint here and raise the penalty. Yeah, they have the administration fees as well. But I'm not advocating for this person, or I think what's done here is incorrect. I'm just trying to move forward with it and have a reasonable resolution. And if we didn't have the citation schedule, then I'd be like, board, have at it. What do you think? But it's there for a reason, and I think it's there to be consistent. And we don't get a lot of complaints, so I don't want to see the board go too far. Just sort of thinking up like, oh, well, to deter it, then we need to have a higher penalty. Well, I think it would have been worth having a discussion at the citation, which the board did discuss it at the time, that maybe it should be higher. But this is what was agreed on, and but I'm here to do whatever the board would like to do. I just want to do it within reason.
Well, after this period of time, wouldn't this person, if they wanted to be a licensed reporter again, have to apply for a new license?
They would.
And they'd have to meet the current requirements to get a license. So really, they really probably need to just to have a consent order, pay the fine, and agree to quit practicing unless they submit a new application.
Would have to have a new application at this point. Mm-hmm.
So if they were grandfathered initially, I'm not saying they were, I don't know, but if they were, they couldn't renew that anymore.
It'd take a lot of work. Yes, it would require the exam and the
They'd have to
education.
meet the current.
Absolutely.
It would take a lot of work and a lot of
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Because that licensing, the testing is not cheap. So.
A lot more. The exam and the education, yes, would be a lot more. Get you to press the speak. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
There you go. Thank you, Brent. That's okay.
My understanding of what Mr. Hugh was saying is that we rely upon either these random audits to identify these types of things, or complaints. Here we have an actual complaint, and so I think it makes good sense to proceed according to the schedule with the complaint that we have, rather than to speculate about other particular and out-of-pocket expense that we're trying to proper practice and proper licensure would itself be the deterrent. So I agree with.
If I could just add one short clarification. So the audits that we do have to do with continuing education audits. So it would never catch her or him. It just, that wouldn't happen. It would be another consumer complaint or an attorney that looks up the information and catches it, something along those lines, not our office, unfortunately. Right.
Well, could I add that with this, I'm fine with this. Could we also have a cease and desist letter go with that to not practice without a license?
Like a yeah. Well, that's part of the consent order. There's language in there about that cease and desist. It's part of the package. I mean, it says, I mean, you're on notice that you're not to practice without a license, et cetera, so on. Yeah, there's it's like a one or two paragraphs in there, but
All right.
so I don't know if we need a separate letter on that. If you think that would work, okay.
It's in there. I
It's
just
in
wanted to
there.
make sure it's in there.
It is. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
As a point of clarification, the recommendation in the report here says to authorize a formal hearing and issue a $250 civil penalty for unlicensed practice of court reporting. Is what actually is being proposed that we propose a consent order to the former licensee imposing the $250 civil penalty if they will agree to it, and if they won't, we would then have to move towards a contested case hearing.
Yeah, it's pretty standard recommendation language. It's basically just to go ahead and get the authorization to do a formal hearing in case they deny it or, whatever, because the complaint stays open until the consent order is signed and payment is received and all of that. So if I'm having problems getting the consent order back and signed and everything I need, then I can go ahead and move forward with the formal hearing. Instead of having to wait for the next meeting and get the authorization, I can go ahead and start working on it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I move that with respect to case number 2022-043991, that we adopt council's recommendation to authorize a formal hearing and issue a $250 civil penalty for unlicensed practice.
I second that.
So we have a motion and a second to accept the recommendation specifically to case 2 that has been discussed. Are all those in agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that takes care of number 2. We did not discuss number 1. You can go back to it. The explanation was there, and it's a little bit simpler. We would need then a separate motion for that one.
I make a motion we close number 1.
Second.
A motion and a second to close number 1 as recommended by legal counsel. All those in agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that takes care of the legal report, I believe.
Thank you.
Hugh. Thank you so much. Okay, then, board members, then what we will do is just go a little bit backwards on your presentation to page 8, if you could. This is just a conversational item, something that came up that was requested for us to review. And we have the emails going back and forth. Joyce is the individual. You're welcome to take some time to read it. Basically, she is asking if the board would consider this new applicant or future applicant possibly moving to Tennessee with this new skills test. And of course, not being in the industry, I really want us to talk about it to see how you'd like us to look at this. It's supposedly a new skill test that NCRA is looking at adopting, but has not yet. So it's just, do we want to do any research? Is there any concern with this? Right now, this is not accepted. Right now, obviously, they would have to follow our current statute and the exam required. But of course, I don't know if in any of the training that comes up for the professionals, if this is being discussed. So I kind of turn it over to you and see if you want us to do anything more with this possibly up and coming trend.
This is a new certification that NCRA has that is not the RPR. It has not taken the place of the RPR. It's just a lower skill set. And it is not meant to take the place of the RPR. It's just a new certification they've come up with for people who are on the road to reach the RPR. The problem with us adopting this is the law says this: to be licensed as a court reporter, an applicant shall submit proof of passage of the National Court Reporters Association Registered Professional Reporter Examination. That's as far as we need to go, because this is concerning NCRA. So there is no vehicle in the law by which to be licensed other than the RPR at this juncture.
Yeah, that was going to be the question I had. I'm not sure that we have the authority to expand the certifications that we accept. I'm pretty sure those were enshrined in the statute from the beginning.
Our interest was that the board, are you aware that this is out there, and would you be able to consider, which is why you're having the conversation. But I agree with you. And we responded that way. It is outside of our jurisdiction to approve this at this time. So knowing that it's just a certificate and a lower skill test, then also answers some of the questions.
So here's my main concern with this, and I wanted to get this on the record specifically, is if you go to NCRA's website and then they ask, one of their facts is who is eligible to sit for the RSR exam, which is what we're talking about, current or aspiring stenographic reporters. To me, that says students.
Right.
And do we want to allow students to be out there making a record? That's my biggest concern. So.
No, this is adverse to the whole idea behind licensure to start with, is to make sure that everyone is qualified and ready to do the job. And considering lowering the standards at this juncture would be absolutely the wrong direction to go.
I do think that one thing, and if I'm remembering, because I haven't looked at our licensing language in a while, where we may have missed or could rethink something at some point if possible. A lot of states do allow like a 6-month grace period to get your state license. I don't believe we do.
We have a temporary permit
Okay,
if
I
you're
couldn't
in
remember.
the pipeline, and we do. Yeah,
Okay.
Year and a half.
yeah.
Okay, so that's in place.
It is.
So there is a method that
Oh,
for
yes.
someone moving. I just couldn't remember. It's been a while.
And we get that often.
Okay.
And one of the things Katie does when they'll sometimes apply and yet submit credentials that show us they're right about there or did pass the exam but just chose the permit instead. So sometimes they don't need the permit. They're really ready for the full license. Other times that's exactly what we do, and we can renew them when they're in that pipeline. Yes. Thank you. Well, I love the conversation because we had responded exactly like you had, but anytime an individual wants the board to rethink or talk about this or make sure you're aware, then I'm always happy to present that to see if we're missing something. So I appreciate that. That is all that I had. If the members have anything else, I welcome that. If not, and unless Hugh has something, we are ready to adjourn.
I have some new business. It's been reported to me that there are people purporting to be licensed reporters in Tennessee who call themselves digital reporters. There's no provision we have for licensure for digital reporters. And I can't attest to this personally, but people have asked me about that. I've even had attorneys ask me about that, people showing up saying they were digital reporters. And they just turn on a recording device and said somebody else, maybe even another country, does a transcript. That's not legal in Tennessee. I just wanted that to be on the record, that how are they getting a license? Are they getting a license?
It's not a path to licensure right now. So no, but the only way we would know, be able to do research, and you all would address it, is to advise for a complaint to be open, right? So we have a name,
Right.
a court that maybe accepted it to where we can also inform. That's the only way we would be able to, I think, address that.
Well, the person who brought it up to me, I said, find out who that is and bring it to our attention with a complaint or something like that so it can be addressed. But I just wanted it to be on the record and to be in the minutes that we do not have licensure for digital reporters unless they're using digits on their hands.
Thank you. And your guidance to them was correct, though. If they file a complaint, we'll have more on the record. So, anything else, board members? If you have nothing, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn in a second and close our meeting out.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Sorry, I missed the second. Ken?
Me.
Thank you. We have a motion by Stephanie, a second by Ken. All those in agreement to adjourn our meeting at 9:46. Thank you. Please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. With that, our meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much for everything you do and for being here for the meeting. We are off the record now.